Councilman Raleigh, are you on?
I unmute that phone. Is that it?
Okay, it was. Councilman Brawley, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, the time is 7 p.m. and I call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Red Oak City Council to order. Let it be shown that we do have a quorum with everyone present except for Councilman Wilson. Present we have Councilman Tony, Councilman Goodwin, Councilman Drake, and Councilman Brawley is calling in with a video conference. This meeting has been duly posted in accordance to Texas Government Code Section 551 and by the statute given to us by the governor, we are able to conduct this open meeting by telephone and video conference. Councilman Tony, would you lead us in the invocation and the pledge?
Our Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening and represent the members of our community. Please guide us as we try to make decisions throughout this meeting. We ask that you be with our frontline healthcare workers and our first responders. We ask that you be with the people who have lost family members. We ask also for a special prayer, comfort for our mayor and his family. We also ask that you be with those people who have lost their jobs, no longer have homes, or who are without food, or in some cases, all three. And Father, I ask you that you continue to remind me that if I'm going to say that I'm a Christian, that I act like it and do all I can to help these people. We ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's great.
Thank you, Councilman Tony. So, Mr. Phillips.
Mayor and Council, I wanted to take this opportunity, you'll notice we have a presentation introducing our new Communications and Marketing Manager, Alexa Beasley. Alexa comes to us from, most recently, the city of Forney. She has over 9 years of municipal experience. There, she was involved in special events, marketing, and promotion of nonprofit entities within the city. So we're excited to have Alexa. She's already dove in. She joined, I believe, November 16th, I think, right, like the week before Thanksgiving. And she's already kind of had her first experience with the media here with some of our COVID-19 situations and been jumping in with our respective departments. So Alexa's joining us on Zoom tonight.
Glad to have you, Mr. Alexa.
Thank you so much.
One of these days we'll be in person, we can meet you face to face. So.
I hope so.
Great. Any citizens' comments? No. Okay. So now's the time for consent agenda. Consent agendas are considered routine in nature and may be acted upon in one motion, or may be withdrawn by any councilman, city manager, or mayor to act upon separately. Council, are there any items 1 through 6 that need to be removed? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, 1 through 6.
So moved.
Councilman Tony? Councilman Drake? Those in favor?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
Great, that's 5-0. I'm sorry, that's 4-0. Okay, good. I are graduate.
Oh, goodness.
All right, 4-0. Regular session, item number 7, consider approval of ordinance number 20-042, the City Council of Red Oak, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinance of the City of Red Oak, Texas, and amend Chapter 1, General Provisions, Article 1.09, Emergency Management, Section 1.09.007, and adding subsection C by providing violation of Article 1.09, Emergency Management, to be a Class C misdemeanor. Providing a penalty for the fine not to exceed $500 for each offense, and providing a severability clause, and providing a savings clause, and providing an effective date.
Mayor, this is Robert. I want to make sure that we didn't have anyone sign up for citizens appearance, since we skipped over that, and the Open Meetings Act indicates that we have to technically have those citizens' comments. I assuming the fact we went by that there are no one has signed up.
That's correct. There are none.
Okay. Todd, do you want to start this, or do you want me to?
Well, I'll start it and let you finish it. So basically, this
Okay.
item kind of goes along with the previous item in consent agenda. Rather than having to deal with any, hopefully no violations, but if we did get into a situation where we have violations of the emergency order, we don't really necessarily want to run them through with a Class B misdemeanor and $1,000 fines and all this stuff. So we came back and reduced those fines and those offenses for the local orders, rather than having to do it through the governor's order and give somebody Class Bs and all that problem. You want to clean that up, Bob?
No, yeah, basically there's provision in 418.173 of the state law, which emergency management statute, that allows us to issue orders, which the mayor has done, and then ratification by the council. And we wanted to have the ability to address that locally, instead of having to worry the police department having to file formal charges at the DA's office. We can make the violations really just Class C misdemeanor violations without there being any jail time, and do it as a fine only. It allows our police department to stay here at home and try to address this locally, instead of using the resources to file formal cases with the district attorney's office and enforce the gubernatorial orders with regard to emergency management. And all we're doing is cleaning that language up so it's clear. So one, our police department knows that we're writing local violations, it's Class C misdemeanor, and then for our judge to follow and issue, if upon finding you guilty, just a fine at our standard fine amount of $500 for a city ordinance fine. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, council? All right. Consider approval, entertain that motion to approve ordinance number 20-042.
So moved.
Councilman Goodwin.
Second.
Councilman Tony. Those in favor?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
All right, that's 4-0. Item 8, consider all matters incident and related to the issuance and sale of City of Red Oak, Texas Tax Note Series 2021, including the approval of ordinance number 20-043, authorizing the issuance of such tax note and approving all other matters related thereto.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is again to request authorization for the 2021 tax note. And this is to fund capital that was included in the budget. Last month in November, Council did give staff the authority to move forward with the tax note and go out for the bid. And Jim Sabonis with Hilltop is here to present those bids for us.
Good evening, Mayor and council members, citizens of Red Oak. My name is Jim Sabonis. I'm the financial advisor to the city. On the city's behalf today, we took competitive bids for the issuance of $835,000 of tax notes. I'm very pleased to say that we received 7 bids from 6 different financial institutions. The low bid of interest rate was received from Truist, formerly known as BB&T, at a 1.15% interest rate. The cover bid was a 1.22%, and the bids range from the 1.15 to 1.54%, all far below the 2% that was presented last month to the council when the council directed to proceed. It was an outstanding sale. Interest rates are at historical lows. Recent market update we have prepared, so there's only 1% of time in history that rates were lower than they are right now. The city's high credit quality, the positive perception of Texas cities by investors resulted in good bids, resulted in very low bids. The total cost of this transaction will be $862,000. It'll be paid over 7 years. In summary, I want to thank Todd and Gloria for working with us, answering any questions from investors. It went really well. The item, if approved tonight, will be presented to the Attorney General, who reviews and approves all municipal bond issuance. We anticipate closing on January 13th. As your financial advisor, we recommend approval. It far exceeds the expectations presented during the plan of finance, and again, typifies the very positive thought that investors have and resulting in aggressive bidding for the city of Red Oak debt. That concludes my formal comments. I'll answer any questions or try to provide any information requested.
Thank you, Mr. Sabonis. Council, your paperwork there in front of you has a summary of all that he just recapped. Again, this is follow-up to something that we started at the November meeting. So we're approving this ordinance, or this ordinance. And then, like you said, it goes to the Attorney General, and then it'll come back to us in January.
Excuse me for one moment. One thing I did forget to mention, this is a reminder, this was built into the budget. It was planned for, and it's executed as planned for, with slightly more efficiency due to the low interest rate.
Questions?
This is money for our capital equipment. So this is what we budgeted to fund the police vehicles, other capital purchases.
And actually, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but it won't come back to the council in January. It will actually close. We should get the funding in January. Is that correct?
Correct, Todd. This ordinance will be the final official action. The Attorney General will review and approval. Then it's just a formality of the closing, which will take place in January, at which time the city receive funds. But this won't come before the council again after presented and if approved tonight.
all good? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve item number 8, including the ordinance, approving of ordinance number 20-043.
Second.
Councilman Drake. Councilman Goodwin. Those in favor?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
Great.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
You too, sir. Item 9, conduct a public hearing regarding voluntary annexation of real property generally described as being 1.351 acres, more or less, out of the Robert A. Layman's Survey, abstract number 628, in the city of Red Oak, Texas, ETJ, Ellis County, Texas, parcel number 148132.
Council, this is part of, the Crystal Lakes development. It was mistakenly, or I don't know if it was mistakenly or not, but left out when the entirety of the development tract was, annexed in for development. And so we've got to development now, and, one of the items, in the engineering plans was to connect to, the existing streets, for the best access. And so, come to find out, it was not actually included in the boundaries of the official annexation. So, but the developer owns the property, he purchased it, it was meant to be included. Again, I think it was just mistakenly left out. So we've spoken with the county, and they're fine with the annexation moving forward. Not that they really have a choice, but we first with them. And so it's simply to kind of put the period on the end of the development so they can move forward and make the connection to the street.
This is that little cross street that goes to the street to the east.
Yes, into the existing county area.
So this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at 7:17. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak about this public hearing of voluntary annexation?
Yes, sir. I was asking about earlier. I believe y'all said I was approved from the 1 through 6.
So, all right.
No, he's item 12.
You're item 12, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, so we're talking about voluntary annexation of real property.
Mayor, for the record, would you inquire the city secretary if anyone signed up to speak at the public hearing?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Bob. So for the record, we did not have anybody sign up for this public hearing, through the online also.
And
So hearing,
then, Mayor, all you need to do is close the public hearing. There'll be no action tonight. There'll be a second public hearing, and then after that, we will vote on the annexation. Thank you.
thank you, sir. So I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Councilman Tony? Second. Councilman Drake? Those in favor of closing?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
Excellent. Public hearing is closed. Item 10, conduct a public hearing on a petition by 212 Red Oak LP for the creation of the Red Oak Public Improvement District encompassing approximately 210.41 acres, which petition is on file with the city of Red Oak. Ms. Barker.
This is for the public improvement districts that's being proposed, for the Oak subdivision for some of the off-site and on-site improvements. We're required to hold a public hearing. We discussed this a little last time within the development agreement scope, and we'll talk about it again on the next item. Some of the items that will be paid for in the public improvement districts through a special assessment will be, or let me step back. So again, it's a bond issued to the city, by the city for the developer's use, and then gets paid back through special assessments to the landowners within the designated districts. Think that it can be used for acquisition, construction improvements, water, wastewater, drainage, or streets, parks, any special items like walls and fountains and things like that that are within the development. But we can talk more about it on the next item as well. But I think, Bob, I don't know if you have anything we need to add for this actual. We need to just hold a public hearing on its creation to make sure that landowners within the area have a chance to speak. So, Bob, I don't know if you have anything else you need to add to that.
The only thing that I would add is state law requires us to hold a public hearing, and tonight's that night, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions when the council takes the matter up at the next agenda item.
Okay. So the time is 7:21, and I'll open this public hearing. Is there anybody online who wishes to speak at this public hearing for the petition on 212 Red Oak LP, the PID?
Well, not unless needed, we're the applicant, not unless needed. Any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. Karen, was there anybody who signed up? Okay. All right. So the time is 7:22, and I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Councilman Goodwin. Second. Councilman Drake. Those in favor of closing this public hearing?
Tony, aye.
Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Brawley, aye.
Excellent. Public hearing's closed. Item 11, consider adoption of resolution number 20-072R, authorizing and creating the Red Oak Improvement District Number 1 in accordance to Chapter 372 of the Texas Local Government Code, providing for related matters and providing an effective date.
So this is the actual resolution that would actually create the district boundaries of where this PID would be located, the Public Improvement District. Again, the improvements would be both on-site and off-site, but they would all be paid for over time through a special assessment collected at the time of ad valorem taxes through the county but would only apply to the people within the specified district. Again, those improvements are on-site, off-site, water, sewer, paving, drainage, and other special improvements, landscaping, parks area, things like that. I believe, Bob, I think the attorneys for the developer are on. So if there are a lot of questions, I think we should have them maybe talk with us, and at least Bonus was also going to have a short presentation of PIDs and how they work, just for more education on the subject. So I'll turn it over to them if they're available.
Yes, this is Tim Green. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm the attorney for the proposed developer, and Steve Fluker should be online as well, and I'm sure he could talk about the development. I have just been involved in interfacing with Mr. Hager on the technical aspects of petitioning to create the PID and getting the notices out, and everything that's kind of culminated in tonight's public hearing and your consideration as to the creation of the PID. I know if your financial advisor is still there, Mr. Sabonis is very, very knowledgeable about PIDs and the financings that they do, in case you have some questions there. But if Mr. Fluker's on the line, maybe he can identify himself. And then if you all have any questions about the development and how the PID blends into that, I would imagine he could answer them.
Yes, we are here. This is Steve Fluker. I'm here with Fred Phillips.
We're on the same camera.
The purpose of this PID is to provide financing as Ben has already described. There are some improvements that are both off-site and on-site. The improvements are roadway, water, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, and 2 public parks that total about 30 acres in size that will be improved with PID funds and then deeded to the city.
So I think this is Todd Fuller. I think we've been through a lot of this already with council, and just so that everyone is aware, we've already approved this as part of the development agreement. We've now held the required public hearing. So what is next is the action to actually establish that PID, and assuming that is approved tonight, then I believe it's January, they would be coming back to actually start selling the bonds in that process. But I know at the last meeting, we did not have Mr. Sabonis on, so if anybody has any questions from the financial end of it, I know Mr. Brawley had some questions, and I spoke with him. He may still have some, so if he does, if he wants to ask those, we'll get those answered.
Mayor, I had sent an email to Mr. Fluker, and he answered several of my questions. And maybe Bob can answer this. Can we put his responses into the record somewhere? Mr. Hager?
Yes. Yes, you may.
Okay. I would like to do that, Mayor, if we can put those responses into the record.
Mayor, what might be appropriate is, with the council's permission, is to reopen the public hearing and then have Mr. Fluger's responses be considered part of the record, if someone would make that motion.
Okay. So do we do that now?
Yes, sir. I would prefer you do it now before you vote on the improvement district.
So we will reopen public hearing.
I'll read a motion. A motion would be to reopen the public hearing regarding the formation of Public Improvement District Number 1 and include the comments offered by Councilman Brawley from Mr. Fluger as comments to be received at the public hearing in consideration of Public Improvement District 1.
Okay. So can I have a councilman make that motion?
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Okay, Councilman Brawley, and I got a second from Councilman Tony, and that reopening is at 7:28, and that's what we put into the motion. I haven't closed it yet. I haven't asked for the vote yet. So we need the motion to reopen it. Yeah, we need to. So, yeah, let's
approve the motion to. Yeah, I'm sorry. The motion is made by Mr. Brawley's to reopen the public hearing. And if we could go ahead and get a second on that and technically take a vote.
Okay, so Councilman Brawley made the motion to reopen the public hearing at 7:29. Councilman Tony seconded. Now a vote to approve that reopening of this public hearing.
Tony, aye.
Correct.
Great, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
All right, so that reopened at 7:29. Now,
Thank you, Mayor. And
Councilman
now,
Brawley, to have the email response from Mr. Fluker. Mr. Fluker entered into public comments for that public hearing. Is that correct, Bob?
yes, that is correct, Mayor.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other, are there any questions that we need to ask for that public hearing? Councilman Brawley?
Well, what you, just, all you do is now is vote on accepting Mr. Fluger's comments. And after that vote's taken, the public hearing will still be open. And then we can entertain any other public comments if Mr. Sabonis wants to weigh in and the council asks questions.
Okay, so we have to entertain that motion to accept those? That's right. Okay.
Accept Mr. Fluger's
So,
comments
entertain
into the
those
public
motions.
record.
To enter those in the public record. Entertain that motion.
I'd like to make that motion, sir.
Councilman Brawley. Second. Councilman Drake. Those in favor?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
Okay, so those things are
Thank you,
in the
Mayor.
public.
Now, if, and I don't know if Mr. Sabonis or Mr. Fuller wants Mr. Sabonis to make any other comments with regard to this, it'd be appropriate to go ahead and take them now and before we close the public hearing again.
Let me ask a question. What are we supposed to take from this? What are we entering into?
So there's so we'll send to you the email response that Councilman Brawley had a whole very well-written email response to their lawyer or to their representatives, and they responded to each one of his points. And so that's what he wants to have that entered. Okay?
Question I've got is, we're gonna supposedly vote on this, does this, what Mike's bringing to the table, does that impact what we may do in the next?
It might, as we discuss it.
We are gonna discuss it.
I hope to be able to, can you forward that to him? He didn't let us. Can you get to your emails now? Yeah. So Councilman Brawley, I think this question is kind of directed towards you for this public comment. Can you, were those answers of good substance to help you make a decision?
Yes, they made a good attempt to answer all the questions that I asked. There was a couple more that I would like to bring up in discussion with council later after we close the public hearing.
Okay.
I was satisfied with the responses that they gave me.
Okay, good.
It's my understanding that that email went out to all the council members, so they should have it in their email somewhere.
And Todd, this is Jim. I'm available to answer any questions or go through any details based on my knowledge and experience with public improvement districts.
Well, Mr. Sabonis, would you just give a brief synopsis of your experience, since this is the public hearing?
Yeah.
Because we as a council want to make the right decision for Red Oak, and we haven't been down this road before, so I think you need to hold our hand a little bit and just give us a brief synopsis.
Sure. Again, for those listening in, this is Jim Sabonis with Hilltop Securities, financial advisor to the city. My background is extensive. In 2007 was the first modern PID. I was the financial advisor for that transaction and actually testified to the Attorney General's Municipal Bond Department about public improvement districts. That was the first public improvement district revenue bond in modern history is done. Since that time, I've been involved in over 120 of these, over 50% of the transactions done in the state of Texas. And during that time, we've worked with the best bond counsel practitioners and city attorney practitioners in the state of Texas to develop what we consider a very stringent, structured, best practice set of legal documents. I'm highly confident that as your financial advisor, working with your staff, your city attorney, and your bond counsel, that we can structure a transaction that isolates any financial risks of the transaction from the city and allows it to be an efficient funding for the developer. These are very common now in the state, and they are a very essential development tool for cities competing for master plan communities. But in summary, what the city should know comes down to this. Ultimately, the landowner currently is petitioning the city to levy assessments, which will be divided up into lots. This project ultimately is about $11,000 per lot. Each home is going to be about $300,000. It's going to be about a 29-cent tax equivalent rate, which in total would be about $2.88. Based on my experience in overall and in the last couple of years, it's a very moderate levy. It's well below the average that we see. We see much higher levies and well accepted. My experience also, because it is a course, that there's no, these are very similar to what you see in the city and what it does when it issues ad valorem taxes and does ad valorem tax bonds. The delinquencies are going to be very similar. These will be collected on the tax bill. They'll be built into the escrow account for the homeowners. The city's responsibilities are very similar to when it issues its general obligation debt. It levies a tax, or in this case, an assessment. The tax is collected. In this case, the assessment is collected. It actually forwards the taxes or assessments to the bondholders for repayment of debt. But with one large caveat, this is structured, clearly legally structured and identified, that there is no other source of repayment or recovery by the bond owners besides the levy and collection of assessments and the foreclosure of the property, just as there is a foreclosure ad valorem. No city funds, no city other resources will be used. These, as a result, will have no impact on the city's borrowing capacity or its access and cost of capital. In fact, there are a number of communities that I've worked with where the rating agencies have looked at that as a very positive way for cities to develop high-quality master plan communities and transfer the cost of capital to the isolated within the development versus the spreading out over the city. So it's been very positive reviewed. I will also tell you that there have been, that in the state of Texas, we're unique. There are problems that have taken place and around the country that don't seem to take place here in Texas for a variety of reasons. And foremost of the reasons is that in the state of Texas, all debt issuance is reviewed and approved by the Attorney General of Texas. As a result, all aspects of the creation process, the bond documentation is reviewed, just as the tax note that was issued earlier tonight is going to be reviewed. And the Attorney General will, before they close, and only way to close is receive approval by the Attorney General that's a valid and appropriate debt. You know, some of the things that you read about in the paper, you know, some problems people have around the country is because they don't have a stringent process to make all things legally done. So, you know, to answer one of the questions asked is, we're going to avoid that some of the problems that you would see out of state because our Attorney General guarantees that there's a valid lien and is structured as we are indicated. I'll also indicate that that this is a very straightforward project. It's not speculative. You know, there are some news articles that have been written about projects that might have been funded and run into trouble about doing a very, you know, ambitious speculative project. These are going to be market price homes prior to actually selling the bonds. One of the caveats would be the builder, the developer will have to show builder contracts and ability to deliver those contracts. You know, this is going to be a straightforward, you know, homes. You know, and you know the general rule of thumb nowadays is if you build them, they're going to come. And Red Oak is a hot market, so you know we might talk about how fast the absorption is going to be and economic flow, but there's no doubt that these is a market product that is not speculative anyway. And the last thing is administration. I would say as your financial advisor, there have been a couple instances where people have had problems administering. I recommend get to the city, and I would not be involved in any project that the city chose to administer themselves or did not choose one of the 4 or 5 what I consider very efficient, effective, and experienced administrators who interact with the every aspect of the assessment process. In my experience and in the transaction I've worked on, we've not had an issue with administration because there are professionals that do it throughout Texas and throughout the United States that are very good at what they're doing. So in summary, as a financial advisor, I do as instructed by the staff and the city council, but I'm highly confident that if you choose to move forward with the project, I and the rest of your team will protect the city and structure it. Now, I can't say the project is going to be successful. I would tell you that I wouldn't be involved in one, or anyone would be involved. They did think it would be, but what I can tell you is that I'm highly confident that there is an efficient, effective, structured way to help assist this process that won't impact the city borrowing, its cost of capital, or any cash or liability to the city in any way. Hope that's a good overview. You know, I want to touch on some of the, I know, hot topics that have been in place, but I will say, and again, you know, there's lots of tools, and I have to credit Red Oak. It's very innovative. It's a creative, conservative community that's used tools to successfully economic develop and been successful. But in places in other cities, maybe in state and other places in the country, tax increment reinvestment zone, sales tax rebates, you know, those things can be problems if they're not well thought through, demonstratively, you know, justified and administered. And I would expect that this project, just like the other projects the city has done, will follow the best practices to make sure that those things are done well and appropriately. Hope that is a general overview. I'll follow up on any specific questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else want to speak on this public hearing?
How many of those kids have defaulted?
And this is Jim. In the state of Texas, I'm not aware of any default that has taken place. And again, I've closely tracked the transactions I'm involved in. None have defaulted. I'm aware of most what's taking place. I'm not aware of any default that's taken place in Texas public improvement districts. And for the just the benefit of a little background, what would happen in a default? Well, in a default, what would take place would be that the city actually is not really that involved in the process. There's predetermined in the indenture involved in the transaction that the trustee, on behalf of the bondholders, would work through a foreclosure process to go forward and foreclosure on property to resell it. There was a true default, and that took place. But generally, what takes place, again, in a few cases we've studied around the country, is that that there's a structured transition. If there's a financially incapable developer, where the trustee will work and find a replacement to work through the process. I will say, haven't been involved. We've researched this extensively over the time we've been involved, and what we have seen is that they're, again, using well-structured documents and the type of documents that would be used here. If the developer did not go forward, it's going to be a situation where there might be some administrative process that take place, but the reality is that the second developer will be successful, and there are examples where around the country where these things have transitioned from the original developer to a follow-up developer and have no impact on the city or on the issuer or the cost to the taxpayers in those communities.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, entertain a motion to close the public hearing at 7:46.
So moved.
Councilman Goodwin. Councilman Tony. Those in favor?
Tony, aye. Goodman, aye.
Drake, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
All right, so that's 4-0. Now, I guess we're on item 11. Consider adoption of the resolution number 20-072R authorizing and creating the Loretto Improvement District number 1 in accordance to Chapter 372 of the Texas Local Government Code, providing the related matters, providing an effective date.
Mayor and council, I know you all were on the original email from Mr. Fluker, to Mr. Brawley, but I just re-forwarded it to you, so you'll have it at the top of your inbox.
In your email.
In your email.
All right, Councilman Brawley, you said most of your questions were answered, but you had maybe a couple others.
Well, I had a question about the lawsuit in League City with that huge dollar amount that was awarded. I was wondering what happened in that. Now, I don't know if that is anything similar to ours, but it was kind of scary seeing that number come out and where the payment of that award came from. Did that come from the city or somewhere else?
So Bob, you might have to answer that.
I think Jim was researching it, but I think, is this the one where we discussed, we thought that League City was trying to manage it themselves, and when they did so, it left them liable, whereas what we would do would be to hire a third-party agent to manage it, and they would give us a hold harmless clause so that it would limit our liability.
That's correct. One of the things that Jim has recommended to the city manager, and he's reiterated tonight, is to have a professional company actually administer the PID. And where League City did get in trouble is they tried to manage it themselves. So they assumed that liability, which we would not do, and would follow Mr. Sabonis' recommendation.
And Todd and Bob, I'll follow up and say that administration is a very important aspect of these. It's very complicated and it's timely. It's very similar to what a tax collector does. What are the amounts outstanding when there's, mid-year home sale? How does that get allocated between buyer and seller? What are the payments due? It all should be outsourced. It is complicated. Again, I don't want to speak specifically about league, but let me say, in a hypothetical, that city levied assessments, one of 3 different projects. None of them issued bonds. All of them were going to be cash flow projects. A couple issues may have come up. One, inaccurate and inability to self-administer. And 2, the actual projects themselves not being completed based on the original amount that the assessment was levied, and the thought that and that there was an over levy of assessments, and the concept being that the eligible project plan would have been $10 million, and they levied assessments for the $10 million, and when they actually completed the project, there were $7 million of projects completed, and they self-administered through a series of blenders. They over-collected, and they had to return funds that were not justified to be collected.
I think it's also important to note that the administrative costs are actually covered by the PID. So when the PID bond is issued, we would actually receive funds, the city would receive those funds to pay the third party, so there's no out-of-pocket costs for the city. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Jim or Bob.
No, you're correct, and actually there's two costs. Any initial or origination cost city has, for instance, any legal costs and the creation of the PID, developing the items on the agenda, and until the bonds are issued and closed, the city's reimbursed for all out-of-pocket costs at closing. Then annually, similar to the city's ad valorem tax, there's a component for debt service and a small component for operations. And we'll say that that operational would cover any of the costs of administration, any additional costs the city might have as far as, if this will be a component unit in their audit, they'll be responsible for some typical regulatory filings. All those costs will be paid by the PID through its operational annual assessment.
Councilman Brawley, does that help?
Yes, that answered the question I had.
Anything else, Mike, that you want to bring up?
No, I know this project's got a lot of obstacles with the infrastructure that we need to address, and this may be the best way to address it. Maybe it's the only way to address it. I'm just a little apprehensive about going down this road and doing PIDs. We've never done it before in our city. And I hear and respect what he's saying about that there hasn't been any problems elsewhere in the state, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have a problem here. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at this from every angle before we jump into it.
One of the more redeeming facts about this thing is that we've got first lien on all the property. Am I not correct in that, Todd?
The debt holder actually has first lien on it, so we don't have any liability. So if it goes default, then whoever owns the property is responsible for the repayment of that debt. Just like a mortgage company would have a lien on it. So we're never on the hook for anything.
We're issuing a bond, aren't we?
They're using our tax exempt bond status to issue those bonds, but the bonds are not our debt to cover. They are covered by the actual property that is held there. And then also Well, the assessment each year, you have a budget each year that comes in. The assessment is basically gonna be the same amount each year for the operational portion to cover the debt that's out there. The only thing we'd really be looking at is year to year on budget approval would be the administrative costs. How much is this third party administrator? How much are these legal fees and so forth? So once the debt is sold, you already have the plan of finance, and that's how they set those assessments each year. So it'd be just like we issue, allow them to issue tax bonds through our names, but we're never on the hook for it. It's the actual property owners, whether that is the people who move into the houses or whether that's still the developer because the deal goes bad, which I don't think will be the case, but it's good to know that that's how it works if it does.
And Todd, can I follow up on that? You're absolutely accurate. Let me give one more additional piece of information. Was that once the homeowners or lots are put in place, it's a parcel by parcel liability. And so, again, in a hypothetical situation, if the home on 1402 Red Oak Boulevard does not pay its assessment, the other homeowners are not impacted, and the city's not impacted. The only issue is the potential payment of assessments by that homeowner, and if they don't pay, the foreclosure. It's slightly different, but there's an important difference. When the city issues ad valorem tax bonds, if a homeowner doesn't pay their annual ad valorem tax, they're subject foreclosure, but the way the taxes, it's the general tax of the city, and in a hypothetical case, the city carries that burden and just spreads it out over everybody until they foreclose. But I want to be clear that each individual parcel is isolated; they're not impacted by someone else's paying. They can pay off their assessment at any time if they choose to, and the city likewise is not impacted by an individual non-payment or the non-payment of the developer as a whole.
Jim, what about the parks area? Mr. Fluker said they were going to improve the parks and then feed those areas over to the city. So are the city now responsible for that assessment of that area?
Well, let me say that by statute, as I understand it, the city could be, but as your advisor and your staff, you're starting with your staff, your council, us as your advisor, we don't want any public property to have any assessment. And so, in every project I've worked in, one of two things: if it was predetermined that land was going to be assessed, the developer would pay that assessment off before the land got transferred. But the intention, and I'd let the professionals that are there, there will be no operational or capital assessment on any property the city has that's originally planned. If any set is added, the practice is that they will be paid off prior to the city receiving. So we will have a park in their public improvement district. That land we have has no liability. It's free and clear from the city's perspective.
Nicely put. Any other questions? Councilman Brawley, you good?
I'm good.
All right. Entertain a motion to approve resolution number 20-072R, authorizing and creating Red Oak Improvement District number 1.
Second.
Councilman Drake to approve, Councilman Goodwin, second. Those in favor?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Raleigh abstain.
Okay, so that is 3, 0, and 1 abstention. All right. Item 12, conduct a
Hey,
public hearing and
Mayor, this is Randall Currington. I just wanted to, real quickly on this, I think that's all of our two cases, correct?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was just going to say, I just wanted to say thank you to the city staff and to you and the council members. Jim Brown and I have owned this property for a long time and worked with it. It's always been a great area to develop, but we've been so short on infrastructure, and working with us on the zoning and getting this PID done really allows us and Fred Phillips and Steve Fluker and the Trez Amalgamated Group to really do something, beyond what could have been done there. So we really want to say thank you for that.
Much appreciated.
Very much.
Yeah. And Todd's been great, and so has Ben Hartman and the whole staff through the years. We've owned this for a long time, and we've often thought about what it could be, but it always was infrastructure challenged. And this allows us to do something that otherwise couldn't be done. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Randall, for giving
Have a
us
good
a
evening.
Christmas gift.
Merry Christmas to y'all. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
Item 12, and all the other gentlemen, thank you all very much. Item 12, conduct a public hearing and consider approval of ordinance number 20-044, amending the City of Red Oaks zoning ordinance to allow a permanent cosmetic tattoo service with limitation as an ancillary use in certain non-residential districts. Case Z20019, requested by Mr. Hart.
Mr. Gensel.
Okay, Mr. Gibbs.
I'm gonna let Ben forgive me sharing it. I apologize. Let's see. Okay.
We get free old Sarge tattoo with you.
That wouldn't be bad.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You may remember in October, during public comments, the gentleman, Mr. Cole Davis, had inquired about the possibility of considering a way to allow him to do a small tattoo service as part of his mother's hair salon business at 276 Lesliewood, business called Snippers. So following the directions that was given and working with their city attorney and taking a draft ordinance to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we have a very simple, straightforward ordinance here. Sorry, can't move the scroll now. Here we go. The basic idea here is the tattoo service would be treated as an accessory use to a primary use. The primary use would have to be something like a hair salon or cosmetology. It couldn't just be anything. It couldn't be a bar. It needs to be a related business, like specifically hair salon, cosmetology, beauty salon. And 10% of the primary floor area is what you'd be limited to. So in this case, Snippers, I believe, is about 1,600 square feet. So Mr. Davis, should y'all approve this code amendment, he wouldn't be able to use more than 160 square feet of that space for his tattoo service. The other considerations in this ordinance is to limit it also as options that would only be allowed in the commercial 1, C1, commercial 2, C2 zoning district. So it's also limited to, as a possibility, only in those two districts. So if somebody wanted to do this, first of all, you got to have a certain primary use, such as a hair salon, and then it needs to be in either C1 or C2. And then you've got to have enough square footage where 10% is going to work for you functionally. Then a few other considerations that were added was to not allow any signage for this type of use. So you're limited more to just the signage of your primary. So in this case, you'd still see the Snippers hair salon advertising, but you should not see some little,
small sign trying to advertise, hey, tattoos here. You know, so that type of signage wouldn't be allowed. And here you can see the zoning district. The top one is already in place where a full-on tattoo parlor requires an SUV only in commercial too. But again, this as an accessory use, it's been proposed that it could be in C1. And for Mr. Davis's purposes, the Snipper's Hair Salon is in C1. So that's a quick overview of the code. With that, I'll take any questions y'all may have. Planning and Zoning Commission did vote to approve 5-0, and we've received no public comment regarding this matter.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, and I'll open the public hearing at 8:05. Is there anyone that cares to speak on this for or against?
No cold watching. Cole?
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. I didn't know if y'all were asking me if you had a question for me or anything. I'd be happy to answer. What you said pretty much covers everything, other than the fact that, you know, half of the reason that I'm doing this is to help my mom's business, and also get away from like the busy Dallas tattoo shop. So as far as like all the rules that y'all have made for me, I have no problem with complying. I have no intentions of any signage or anything like that. It's going to be me and my personal clientele only. Very under the radar is how I actually would prefer it. So I don't see any issues following any of y'all's rules, or I can also bend to any other things y'all might have in consideration. I did say last meeting, which I know some of the people that are here now didn't look like they were there last time, is that I don't have any intentions of, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I don't think that someone brought up a concern of this opening up a pathway for a tattooer later in the future, which I completely understand. And I came into this knowing exactly what, you know, you guys were looking at as far as like having a tattoo shop in Red Oak. I don't think from a tattooer's perspective, and I have 13 years of experience, it's taken me a very long time to build a clientele that I have. And I don't see personally from a tattooer's perspective, anybody else being able to take advantage of this route that y'all have paved for me. So that would be the one thing that I would be concerned of if I was in your shoes, having these kinds of situations pop up all over town. And just from a tattooer's perspective, I really don't see that being a problem.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, Karen's noted that there's not been anybody that submitted a request on this public hearing. So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing at 8:08. Councilman Tony? Favor. Councilman Drake? Those in favor of closing?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye. Drake, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
That's 4-0 to close. All right, council, consider this ordinance, to approve this ordinance, the discussion that y'all want to have. So my question, I mean, so it's, and forgive my uncertainty about that. You have to be licensed by the state of Texas as a tattoo. So is it a subset license registration that goes to that building?
Well, you have to get a license from the state of Texas, certainly to operate the tattoo service. So that goes
But is it a physical address that has to be?
Right, he has to give an address and location and has to verify the state with the city that the zoning allows him to do that use, that service at that location.
Okay. Okay.
So, Mayor, Council, both the cosmetic, the permanent cosmetic facility and the artist involved or the person administering the permanent cosmetics both have to have the correct certifications from the state. Just like the cosmetology facility has to have its regulations, and then the individual cosmetologist has to have her license. So it's basically treated, and we believe that the definition of an accessory permanent cosmetic studio would keep this from mushrooming into a larger operation, and we've got control over that. If someone does want to open a traditional tattoo parlor as a primary business, they have to come to us and get an SUP, and then obviously you and the council would look at that separately and differently than you would look at this in the case of Mr. Davis, if he were to operate under these rules.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan. Okay, entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 20-044.
So moved.
Councilman Goodwin.
Second.
Councilman Drake. Those in favor of approval?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Raleigh, aye.
That passes 4-0. Item 13, conduct a public hearing and consider approval of ordinance number 20-045, changing the zoning from commercial C1 to planned development PD with uses generally from commercial district C1 and allowing for a vertical mixed-use building to include apartments on upper floors at 109 South Main Street, City of Red Oak, Texas, case number Z20016, requested by Zeke Gonzalez. Mr. Brian.
So sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt. Will someone be reaching out to me as far as what I need to do as the next step to go forward? Or do I just need to...
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, so, for this case, the location is in our historic district in downtown Red Oak at 109 South Main. There's currently an empty lot, and it's zone commercial 1, C1. One of the main reasons for this request is, as being a PD, is that the C1s require a 25-foot setback from the front yard. Well, apartments as well, normally you could do an SUP, specific use permit, to request the apartments being on the second floor. But in this instance, because of that front yard setback, it was advisable to treat it instead as a PD. Get you a site plan here so you can see what I'm talking about.
There's also these printouts here with the site plans on them. You guys should all have in front of you.
So anyways, but for the PD, so I guess I'll delineate. So rather than doing like a specific use permit, which y'all may be more used to in this situation, to allow the apartments on the second floor in a commercial 1 district, we're using the PD as the option to cover that. But more importantly, the 25-foot front yard setback, you can't really meet and make this site work. So we're doing, I believe that is closer to 8 feet front setback to basically provide for a sidewalk across the front. The other issue would be that, you know, in general, in this historic district, developing there's always a challenge. You know, for example, dumpsters and parking in any historic district are a challenge in any city, anywhere in the West. And And that was a problem here as well. We spent basically 2 meetings at the Planning and Zoning Commission working with the applicant on these issues to try to deal with the trash refuse as well as the parking. The original vision was actually for a 3-story building with 4 apartments on the second and third floors, with the commercial on the first floor, but trying to work out a location for a dumpster for that much trash and still trying to provide some on-site parking just wasn't working. So the Planning and Zoning Commission basically said, well, you know, something's got to give, make a trade-off. So they traded off on not trying to do the 3-story. So they've come back with a 2-story product. Again, apartments on top, 2 units, and the commercial C1 uses on the bottom. And this provides 5 on-site parking spaces in the back, 6 out front in the city right-of-way on Main Street, and there will be a space for the 4 poly carts that would be screened there also on the back side of the property. So this, let me to the front here. So this is the view from Main Street. And so it's a 2-story red brick building. It may be hard to tell here, but there's a lot of brick detailing of soldier courses and alternate patterns to avoid it looking like just a big monolithic brick wall. There's mosaic tile here, that's the bluish color you see at the bottom. And providing some benches out front. If you look at the side view, you can see that there's a bit of a punch out on the second floor, but also attached to that is an awning. This is to provide some shade relief. You kind of revisit your downtown vision plan and just following general practices for trying to redevelop the old historic area. That's one thing to look out for is how can you provide some shade relief, especially when you don't have room for trees to provide shade. So punching out or having an awning, something like that. It never has to be across the whole width of the building, but just give somebody a little reprieve from the sun. And let me show you the alley view. So it does show providing for 2 balconies, 1 for each unit on the back side. This was an issue that was raised during the public comment at P&Z by Mr. Groves. He was concerned about people with the balcony facing the alley. I'll go to the site plan so this will be easier to follow. So here's the alley. With the idea that the balconies would, one, allow people to see into his backyard of his business, and then also potentially for people to see into the backyard. There's a house on the other side of Water Street there. So that was one issue that was raised. Another issue that Mr. Groves raised was there's a concrete flume here on the side, and it would appear that the building would probably take over some of that concrete flume, but for Mr. Gonzalez, it's his property, and these are the documents we've been shown. So I mean, the issue was raised and discussed at P&Z, but it's kind of viewed as a bit more of a practical, technical engineering construction matter, not so much one of zoning. So this is the site plan we've been given, the elevations we've been given. If there's an issue about a concrete flume and drainage and how that may be impacted, we still have to go through a plat process. Most of these properties in downtown area have not been platted, so we still have to go through that. Still got to put together construction plans to get a building permit. So there's still several hurdles for Mr. Gonzalez to get through to deal with these practical considerations for the site. But again, this is zoning. There is a little bit of landscaping in the back, but it's really not much to speak of, and that would be another reason for the TV. Certainly, you just couldn't require everything you require normally in a C1 district in the downtown area, if the goal is to redevelop it in a historical context. And from what we understand in the comp plan and vision plan, that goal is to redevelop and revitalize the downtown area. Let me see if I missed any of these highlights. Ben, if you want to chime in there.
Along with the benches in the front, they're providing some planters, some larger style planters with what would be presumably larger bushes, just to kind of give it like kind of a street art, kind of create an edge condition. The goal, I think, overall is, you know, this is the type of thing that creates momentum in a place that doesn't have any momentum. And so our hope from our perspective in development services is that other people who are down there right now and have just been sitting stagnant with their buildings will say, hey, man, that's a great looking building. We'd like to do something similar. And so creating this, pushing that building up to the front of the lot, you know, having the sidewalk out there, that kind of sets the tone, so we can, the next building that comes in, we'll do something similar, and hopefully we'll get a nice 8-foot sidewalk along the whole street, and with similar facades and uses, and you know, I really like the aspect of, one thing that Mr. Groves also mentioned the first P&Z meeting was that he thought, you know, apartments were going to bring crime to the area, because one time he got his truck broken into, or so, I don't remember the exact story, but I had the exact opposite opinion of him, is that the more people you put down there, the less likely you're going to have people walking around and stealing stuff from businesses, because you've got people sitting out on their balcony at 10 o'clock at night, you know, enjoying a coffee or doing whatever. And so with more eyeballs kind of on the street, I think you get less nighttime activity that would be you know, harmful to the area. I think the parking they provided is more than enough in a downtown type setting. So, you know, most downtown plans that you see, like we were just talking with Friesen Nichols, and they just worked on Midlothian's downtown plan where they have no parking requirement, 0 parking requirement. And I know in Mansfield we've got two plans that both require very little to no parking for both commercial and residential, just because, you know, the spaces are tight, and all of these were built and developed originally at the time where we didn't have cars, and we did all the walking. And so, but I think that's what brings vibrancy to a downtown area, is a lot of walking. Now, can we just totally write off cars? No, we can't. So we're trying to provide as much as we can while still providing, you know, balancing the walkability and street scene with practical mobility of people still wanting to utilize their office, which I think this does a good job of.
So okay. So anything else you want to put in?
Nothing to hand out.
So this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing at 8:23. Is there anyone who cares to speak on this project?
Yes, Mayor. My name is Jorge Barragon. I'm with Walls Consulting Engineers. We're the civil engineers on the project. So if you guys have any technical questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, sir.
Is this a for or against? Yes, it's for or against, either one?
That is correct, sir.
Yeah, this is Mark Groves, 107 South Main, and I want to speak against the project. Not particularly against the project, but the zoning change on the setback. You know, setting it back from 25 foot. I don't know if the 0 lot line already applied to that property or not, but it seems to me they're pushing it back, or they're going to try to change that pushback to allow it within 4 foot of my building. I don't know if you know if that change in the zoning allows for that or not, but this building is proposed right on top of me, pretty much 4 feet. And that's real close. That's one of my big concerns. I've been down here for over 25 years, and that's the most disappointing thing about this project, is changing it to accommodate that. I just think none of the other buildings are that close down here. And again, the drainage flume, I don't know how, nobody's addressed that. It's right in the middle of my property and their property. I just don't know how. I think the thing's going to have to be probably demoed out. I don't know how they're going to do it. And nobody's addressed that.
I can answer
That's
that.
one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the flume is not on. It's all on your property. It's not on the lot 1 block A, proposed lot 1 block A property. It's all on your property based on what our surveyor went out and surveyed. You know where the property corners are at and the property line runs at. So our property line runs right, basically, you know, along the I guess like the south line of that concrete flume. So it's not on our property and all that. The flume itself, I went out there with my associate as well. We both went and looked at the site to analyze the drainage associated with it. And it appears that, I mean, the flume there is to catch basically drainage from the back of Mr. Grove's building and route it alongside his south property line basically and into that flume. There is some pampas grass or something like that that's there that might be obstructing some of his flow. But as far as drainage, we're not impacting any of that existing drainage that's associated with that concrete flume.
Well, there's about a 2-foot vertical there that's on the south side of that flume, and the property line stake is right in the middle of that vertical. So my question is, are you going to have to demo out that whole vertical, which is half on my property, half on his property, or are you going to set it back a little bit from that? Because the stake is right in the middle of that vertical that where this flume is.
Okay.
So the only way I can see that you can build on it is you're going to have to probably saw cut that vertical in two to do the foundation work you're going to need to do.
Okay, I like I said, based on our survey, it doesn't show it to be that way. And if it is the case, then yeah, we have to make some modification on that. I guess that curb you're talking about vertical. I guess it must be a curb there. We have to make some modification to make sure we accommodate that properly. We address that properly, because obviously that would impact the proposed building as well. If we don't address that, we could potentially have water coming into that building, the proposed building, if we don't address it properly.
Let me bring you back in, since this is about zoning and not so much on construction and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
But Mr. Graves, we heard your comment that you're just basically against this, so we'll take that into account. Is there anybody else that?
One other question, or one other comment I'd like to make is their sidewalk is stopping, the 8-foot sidewalk. When the people are walking, the pedestrians are walking down the 8-foot sidewalk, they're going to step directly into this flume, which drops about 2 feet, which is a hazardous condition that will probably come back on all three of us if that's not addressed with some kind of handrail or something blocking that. Just FYI.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll make sure that has, because he's got to have ADA access from one part of the sidewalk across to it, so they'll have to address that, but that's all construction.
Okay. If this goes through, I'd like a contact who I can contact with if I'm going to have problems, because obviously you're going to build it within 4 feet. My concern on in the other meeting with the planning zoning meeting was debris getting dropped over onto my building. I've already taken pre-construction pictures, so I just want to know who I'll be contacting with. If Brian can let me know that if I have damage to my roof, side of my building, or whatever.
Yes, Mr. Graves, we'll make sure that you have contact from the city.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Anybody else that wants to speak for or against this project?
The previous city council spent $6 million to widen Good Hope Road so that we could impact the old town, try to get development. And bear that in mind, that that's one of our long-term strategies and desires, is to make sure the old town area gets some business and new buildings and things like that. So, we spent a lot of money trying to get this thing, this is one of the payoffs. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, was there anybody else that signed up, Karen, to speak on this? Okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion at 8:30 to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Councilman Goodwin,
Second.
Councilman Tony. Those in favor of closing?
Tony, aye.
Goodwin, aye.
Great, aye.
Right there.
Councilman Brawley. Councilman Brawley.
Raleigh, aye.
Great, so that's closed at 8:31 now.
You got me over here. You get the,
Okay, people, can you pull up a Google of that property, a live, active plan?
A plan?
Yeah. Just a Google Earth.
Here you go. Oh, that's here.
Yep, gotta get rid of that other thing.
Okay, and I should be able to see it. Should look like an empty lot.
Okay, so. Okay.
4 feet from the other.
So can you back out of that? So,
You're trying to get to the aerial view?
yeah, just the aerial view, looking down, not so much Google Earth. Google Earth, can you do that? I guess what my question is, so this inset picture that's in this plan has what looks to be 3 nice trees out along Main Street.
Firewood.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get a tree survey from them. I don't expect they're like towering oaks or anything. They're probably, just grass trees.
So where'd this picture come from?
Oh, that's on the other side. That's on the other side of the street.
Across the road. That's on the railroad track side?
Yeah.
Between Main and.
Okay,
So those
here's
will stay,
what's
if you look at your, if your site plan, you'll see them across the street.
Okay, so this one helps that you got pulled up. So how are they, so you said that there's 3 parking spots on that side, and they're having to cut that, they're gonna widen that to get 3 more parking on the railroad track side?
Right.
So how are we preserving those 3 trees?
They're going up right next to them. So they'll be in the drip line, but they still should survive.
Is there a sidewalk on that side?
No.
Is there a planned sidewalk on that side?
Not right now, but that's certainly something, to talk about in the comp plan discussions for downtown.
Okay. And so the goal of this development change is to eliminate the setbacks, both left and right and front to back?
So right now, it's already got entitled, C1, which has 0-foot side yard setback.
Okay, so we're not changing that based on what Mr. Graves.
Right, no, the only thing we'd be changing is we're wanting to push the building closer to the street to allow for the parking to be in the back. So right now, the technical regs for C1 require a 25-foot building setback in the front. And so by changing the zoning, we're allowing it to push up, closer to the street so that you've got more of a downtown type feel. When you go to a big old city that was built, before the invention of cars, most of the buildings were up close to the street with a walkway right along the edge of the storefront.
So can I assume this development plan is an accurate drawing?
That they were done by a surveyor and a licensed engineer, so
Okay.
that is our assumption.
So that building that he's proposing to build is set back further than what Mr. Graves is set back?
No, Mr. Graves is actually fairly close as
Well,
well.
it says,
Yeah, so this new building is set back further than Mr. Gray's on the front.
on the front.
Yeah.
So, but Mr. Graves brought up the point that it's gonna be set up closer to the road.
Yeah, I think in his case, he was more concerned with the side build line. No, he didn't mention that, but I think his concern was more the side build line because of the constructability aspect of,
Sure.
having to
Yeah.
deal with them.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify it because
Yeah.
there's a misconception of what he's got, that it's gonna be, that we're moving that building all the way up to the road, and it's gonna be closer to the road than what his actually is, and it's not.
It's not.
Okay, just wanna make sure, making a case point. So that fence that you had on one of those pictures, is that the border to the south? I guess from the street view, maybe, I don't know. Yes. That's not his property, that's
Right,
the
no.
next person's.
Correct.
Okay. All right, council, any questions? Councilman Brawley, you have any questions?
Yes, what was P and Z's comments other than, is it all covered here, what their comments were?
Yes, I believe so. Was they generally, this was over two P&Z meetings, so this was kind of a culmination of their feedback from the first meeting to the second. And again, we've reduced from 3 to 2 stories, and I think it reflects the motion.
Councilman Brawley, so originally when they brought this forward to P&Z, it was 3 stories. And so we were having issues with the parking, so we had only, again, like Brian said at the beginning, we had issues with parking and dumpsters. So with the 3 stories and the number of units that were allowed in there, we felt slightly uncomfortable with the parking. P&Z did not like the parking setup, but also they actually lost a spot from what you're seeing right now, because when you go up to that many units, CWD, our trash provider, was asking for dumpsters versus the poly bin. So now with just 2 apartment units, they're okay with utilizing poly bins instead of having an actual full-size commercial dumpster. And so that first meeting, we talked about all that, and their kind of instruction back to the applicant was, hey, we really think this would be much better as a 2-story, then you can utilize the poly bin, get a parking space back, and still have a good development. So that's where we're at now.
Thank you.
5-0?
Yeah, 5-0.
Thank you.
This is not here or there, but, so how do they get to the upstairs? There's no requirement for a fire exit on the outside?
The stairs are internal. Yeah, they're internal.
So, but that would be behind a locked glass, right?
I'm sorry?
That's behind a locked door?
The entrance to the stairwell?
Yeah.
I assume that they will have some kind of key card access or something to access the stairwell.
And then that's a business down below, is that typically someone that owns?
That would be the the ideal situation. We've had people call us before asking for those types of live-work situations. So I don't know if the.
Mayor, this is Ben.
Yep.
Mayor, I know we've got some similar buildings within the city, and they can get in from the backside of the building and go upstairs, and it's a door directly to the outside that leads directly to the apartment and never enters inside of that the business on the lower story, on the lower floor. And if I'm certain they'll have to be sprinklered, fire alarm and those sort of things as well. So.
Okay. That's fine. All right. Any other questions, council? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 20-045. That's Councilman Drake.
Second.
Councilman Goodwin.
Brawley.
Those in favor of ordinance number 20-045.
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Brawley, aye.
That passes 4-0. Item 14, consider adoption of resolution number 20-073R of the city of Red Oak, Texas, amending the master fee schedule by amending and also amending chapter 11, utilities fee, by amending section 11-004, garbage collection charges, subsection A and subsection B, to establish new rates, providing a repealing clause and providing a severability clause and providing an effective date. Mr. Williams.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This agenda item seeks Council's approval to amend, of course, our master fee schedule. The city has a contract with Community Waste Disposal, which provides for an annual market adjustment, which would begin January 1st. The adjustment basically covers CWD's increase. It factors in their increased landfill rates, fuel adjustment, and I guess the CPI as well. And they've provided their in the agenda item, and I've as a exhibit, I've provided their kind of the rate schedule, what that looks like percentage wise of how they derive at their additional cost. But to that cost, they are essentially just for the once a week pickup for recycle and garbage. It is the new rate is $12.71. The old rate is $12.58. So it's a 13-cent increase. We also in our fee schedule have if a resident wants or has an additional cart, the new rate would be $5.26. The old rate was $5.13, so that's another 13 cents increase, just for that additional pickup as well, not just for the cart. So, and that's it. I will field any questions. Hopefully, I can answer them.
All right. Council, any questions? No. Okay. Entertain a motion to approve or adopt resolution number 20-073R.
So moved.
Councilman Tony.
Second.
Councilman Brawley. Those in favor?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Brawley, aye.
That's 4-0. Departmental reports. Chief Blanton.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Council, I don't have any thing to add per se to the report that you received. Unless you have any questions, I will give you an update on COVID real quick. In the last week, we've had over 5 million cases on the globe, over 76,000 additional deaths, just over 1.4 million in the United States, additional cases, 17,000 deaths in the United States. We've had an additional 78,000 cases in Texas, an additional 1,310 deaths. I just received the numbers from Ellis County a few minutes ago, and we have increased 849 cases in the last week in just Ellis County, and unfortunately with 5 additional deaths. 162 of those cases were in Red Oak, and fortunately we've had 0 additional deaths in Red Oak. So we're still seeing that rise from Thanksgiving, and we're seeing a significant rise in hospitalization. Go over some of the hospitalization stuff in all of trauma service area E, which makes up 18 counties in North Texas. There's currently only 57 ICU beds available in all of trauma service area E. So just to put that into a little bit of a perspective.
The population and people within that area.
In Ellis County, there's only 6 available inpatient beds in all of the hospitals, in all 4 hospitals in Ellis County. Currently, right now, they have 69 inpatient COVID inpatients. And in Ellis County, the percentage of hospital capacity with lab confirmed COVID-19 as of today was 40.83%. And unfortunately, we are leading trauma service area E in that, so that's not a real good thing we're leading in. There's only 1 ICU bed available in Ellis County, and there's currently 13 COVID patients in ICU. Today, again, another unfortunate, and I keep saying this, but one day I'm gonna bring positive news to my report. So y'all hold me to that, please. But unfortunately, today we set another record in trauma service area E with 18.95% of all hospitalized COVID patients as compared to the availability of hospitals in trauma service area E, and this is what's directly tied to over the 15%, which is tied to GA Order 32, which lowers occupancy rates from 75% down to 50%. What got us there, for those that may not be aware, is we had 7 consecutive days over that 15% threshold. In order to get out of that 50%, we have to have 7 consecutive days below that 15%. And right now we have not. I know we've had 1 day that we were below, but we immediately shot back up the next day. So we've got to have 7 consecutive days below 15%. And I will have the rest of the report finished up this evening, and I will send that out to each of you, and I'll entertain any questions. I would like to, since this is our last meeting, real quick. One other thing about the COVID is the Pfizer vaccine's obviously out. I'm sure you've heard that on the news if you kept up with it. Today they were delivered to some Dallas hospitals, and the first round is going to doctors, nurses, things of that nature. And we're hopeful that emergency services will be on the second round within the next couple of weeks to get that. We have in the department, something I didn't mention is we're hiring 3 personnel because we've had some personnel leave. And we did interviews. So we'll hopefully have those hired back up to full staffing by the end of January. And I'd like to close with this being the last meeting of 2020. I'd like to thank the mayor and council for your leadership and guidance through the last 10 to 12 months through this pandemic. It's because of your leadership we've been able to get through this. It's been impressive for me to see how each city department has worked together and collaborated and got through this process through teamwork. I know because of your leadership, the city of Red Oak has led Ellis County through this pandemic, and we receive calls weekly asking how our city handled certain situations. And we're getting those calls from much larger cities. So I think that's a direct reflection of y'all's leadership, and I appreciate that. And just want to wish each of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much for what you do. Chief Wolf.
Mayor, Council, I only have a few things. We've gone through our hiring process. We conducted interview boards last week. We're looking at about 8 potential candidates. They're currently in our background process. Out of the 8 candidates that went to board, we had 5 pass. So those 5 candidates are currently in the background stage of our process. I wanted to take a minute, as much as it pains me to do this, I wanted to commend the fire department, in particular Chief Blanton, on the job that he's done. He gave all the kudos to y'all, which are well-deserved, but he has to coordinate numbers that come from the state, the county, other municipalities. I know he's up late at night calculating numbers and verifying and make sure he constantly updates our dispatch on what would be considered a potential hazardous location for first responders when they go. There's a lot of work that goes into all the numbers that he's rattled off. And being his cohort on the opposite side of the fence, I get to see that firsthand when I go in, and he's always got his head in the computer, and he's always looking at numbers and making sure that the information that's provided to you as a council is accurate, and that it's timely. And that's through no small effort of him, and the amount of time that he's put into it to make sure that all of you are informed accurately on those numbers. And I just want to take a minute to tell him thank you for the job that he's done, because that was no small undertaking. Aside from that, I don't really have anything to add unless you have questions about the monthly report.
How many officers are you trying to hire, Steve?
I'm currently down 3.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Harper?
Mayor, Council, just wanted to point out the tremendous number of new homes we still have coming in, where our subdivisions are filling up with homes at a phenomenal rate. So we had 32 new homes last month. It's one of the highest months we've seen. And it's a little odd just because it's not the buying. So there's a ton of people moving to Texas and Red Oak and having lots available for them, and it's cool. We've got a couple of new subdivisions that are getting close to being done or kicking off. So we've got Crystal Lake, they're out there starting the infrastructure. Oakmont Phase 2 just started, and also the home builders who were building them there were so confident of the subdivision, they actually bought the rest of the subdivision from the developer, and they're going to develop it themselves. On the west side of 35, we got Creek Bend coming up. And Summerwood has started their grading activities out there.
Which is where?
Summerwood is just west of Legacy Square, and in between Legacy Square and Harmony. The one with the roundabout in it, if you'll remember that one. So we should have a good forecast of lots on the ground available for home building. So I think we're going to see a lot of homes being built in the next 18 months. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, sir. Ms. Amanda?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I don't have anything else to add to my report. I did just want to give an update that we will not have an event for the holiday luncheon, but we have come up with something alternatively for all employees. So they will expect that this week. Just want to thank Mayor and Council for everything that you've done for the employees this year. And I think how we're handling the pandemic and employee morale is affecting our employees in a positive way from what I can tell in comments that have been made. So thank you all. Do anybody have any questions about my report or any questions about HR?
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Platt?
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to bring out a couple of things. We're in a new property tax year. We've just begun collecting. We're down just a few thousand, $3,300 basically from the same month last year. But this is an area that we will want to watch in our current situation. Typically, we collect the bulk of these revenues December and January. They become delinquent in February 1. So we'll be able to tell a lot better next month and see where those are. Good news is sales tax is still trending up. The report included November. However, we have received the deposit for this month also, and we're up quite a bit additionally in that area. So hopefully that continues. And then also, as Ben Hartman brought out, we're still up in building permits. So that's all I wanted to bring out. If y'all have any questions about the report or any other questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
What's our sales tax revenue look like?
I'm sorry?
What's the sales tax revenue look like?
We just received in December, our revenue is up 11.73% over December of last year. And the 12 months preceding, it's 19.37% increase.
How much is that encompass?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
How much of that is Compass?
I don't have that data yet.
A good bit of it was Compass, but now Compass is tailed off until they get moving on their second phase. So I think this is mostly not Compass.
That's good. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed, what you got? Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, Council, just want to add a couple of things. We have been building out new laptops for the police department. They're replacing all their computers. Chase actually built all 12 of them in one day, so he was busy. We've been working with finance on the new Encode server, so hopefully we're in the middle of that project and having weekly meetings, so hopefully that'll get moving along soon. And Public Works put in some conduit for us in the ground going out to the new concession stand so that we can run fiber out there for communications, cameras, Wi-Fi, whatever we want to do later. But we did manage to get that in the ground before they pour concrete, so that'll be good. That's all major stuff right now. Okay, quick.
Thank you. Mr. Ragsdale.
I don't have anything to add to the report, Mayor and Council. Just unless there's any questions, just wish everybody happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kelly.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. This has been a crazy year. It's hard to believe that my first year has come and gone, and we've certainly accomplished quite a bit together as a team. And, you know, I've just got a lot of people to say thank you to for, you know, showing me around to get me acclimated, and then also kind of helping me along in different areas. I mean, I tell everybody thank you. There's different things to be thankful for with the different groups. And would like to add that if anybody would like to come out on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., we will start laying turf on the first field at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. We'd love to see some faces out there. It is a little bit muddy, so don't wear your nice shoes if you come out. We'll try to get a route onto the surface of the field where it's dry, where we can go out there and kind of watch them work. But 2 fields worth of turf arrived today, and we're scheduled to have 2 more fields next week. And then the final fields will come sometime in early January. So once we get all the fields in for the back there, we'll certainly see the project kind of come into, we start seeing some of the hard work producing some fruit out there, and be able to see things finishing up. Right now, we look like we're still on target to finish in mid to late February, and just everything will just depend upon how the weather goes from here. But everything's looking really good.
Great.
If anybody has any questions about that or anything else?
Good to see you working out in Bear Creek.
Thank you. Did you get that map?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I just want to make sure you knew that we're working on that and working with fire department for do some controlled burning out there in the next 45 days or so. We're waiting for the plan to get approved, and then we'll do the fire department will run the control burn, and hopefully that'll help clean up some of the invasive species that are running rampant out there.
Let me know when you and Chief Latin start that project. I want to be there.
Certainly will.
All right. Mr. Williams, anything?
Mayor Council, I actually don't have anything to add to my report. I would maybe just highlight that our Public Works Department's working closely with the Parks Department, primarily for the Live Oak ball field. We're installing about 1,400 feet of electrical conduit, so all the electrical can be underground. And I think at the same time, we're also getting the all the water lines in place and established for the needs of the field and facilities. So, but it's been a good project, and we look forward to seeing the end to that. And it will, as Kyle has said, it's going to be it's just going to be something that the Metroplex and certainly the South region will really want to come out and participate at. So thank you. Y'all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
How much water does it take to get that AstroTurf to grow?
Kyle, you can take that question.
We'll just take whatever rain we get out there and it'll be good.
All right. Yeah, so staff, thank you for what y'all do. It doesn't go unnoticed by council. We appreciate all the reports that you do, the timeliness, the updates, and I'm sure from each one of us, we wish each one of you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday, and be safe with your family, as we won't see you until after the new year. Be safe, but thank you for what y'all do. So, so the time is 9 p.m. and we will go into executive session, closed session, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.087, 551.072. And we'd like to invite Mr. McCleary, Mr. Hager, and Mr. Parker will be on. Mr. Councilman Brawley, and Mr. Parker, and Jim Sabonis, and Mr. Sabonis, and and then all those. So that's 9:01.
Hey, Gloria?
Yeah.
Gloria needs to be in there?
No.
Okay. So I've got Goodwin, Tony, Phillips, Lee, Mayor Brawley.
Parker.
When
he gets on, I'll just text him.
I don't see them on here.
He might not be yet.
They're not on here, I guess. I got Michael Fry.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm gonna do all you guys up there.
Watch the other room. Others will be calling in on the 214 number.
Okay. Anybody else? Everybody dropped off the call except y'all, that's the first time. You Usually somebody stays on.
Go home.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Cheers. It's double.
I'm not sure that everybody heard Kyle, but Wednesday morning, they're gonna start rolling out the turf.
What do you say about his bad shoes, good shoes, what?
I couldn't,
Okay. I don't know why I was talking like that.
yeah, it was his connection.
Yeah, you just get.
That 214 number is.
James Parker, he's in here too, right?
Right.
Okay, I think I've got everybody on there, I think. I'm gonna add this phone now.
Yes, sir. Hey, we're taking a potty break, Mr. Parker. We'll be back in, okay?
Phone's unmuted.
We're good?
Everybody will look back within 30 seconds of it.
That phone has to be found back. This thing, that's gone. All right. So the time is, 10:01, and we will reconvene back into open session. And as a result of executive session, we don't have any action items. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Councilman Goodwin. Councilman Drake. Those in favor of closing at 10:02?
Tony, aye. Goodwin, aye.
Drake, aye.
Raleigh,
Hey, real quick, we do have the second public hearing tomorrow night for the annexation and the approval of the ordinance, which should take 5 minutes. So, and Jonathan will handle it on mine, my daughter's gonna be banned. But does anybody have to be here, or can we do it all on Zoom and phone call?
Give me a telephone number.
Okay, you good, Michael?
Let's email it.
Okay.
All right.